and welcome to the January 19th, 2023 meeting of the City of Highland Park Zoning Board of Appeals. Kelsey, if we could get a roll call, please.
Okay, Member Trzanski?
Present.
Member Yablon?
Present.
Member Zaransky?
Here.
Member Hendrick?
Here.
Vice Chair Bay?
Here.
Chair Collier?
Here.
Okay, Member Beck is absent. Myself, Kelsey Saywell, staff is present. City Forester Ben Miller and Assistant City Forester Joe Moda are present, as well as our minute taker Debbie and Council Liaison Andres Tapia.
Thank you. I'll ask my colleagues if you've had an opportunity to review the minutes from the January 5th meeting.
Yes.
And so I will entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as submitted in the packet.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
We have a second by Member Krasinski. That's his first second of the term. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Any abstentions?
I will abstain.
Abstain.
Can we pass this with 3 votes? Because I'm going to abstain too.
The minutes are not accepted.
So we will,
So we have
We will continue that item
4
until
votes?
the next
3.
meeting.
I'm abstaining.
We have,
Two.
it's three
three
versus.
abstentions?
Yeah,
Oh, sorry.
yeah.
I'll review the minutes and approve it in the next meeting, so we'll clear that up.
We can talk about it later.
Yes. Thank you. The publication date for new business was January 4th, 2023. Is there anyone in the public who wishes to address an item that is not on to this evening's agenda? Okay. We do not have any old business. That brings us to new business. Our one item this evening is 2022-VAR-030, the property at 178 Prospect Avenue. The applicants are Charles E. and Lauren M. Wood. Kelsey, do we have a presentation?
yes, we do, Chair. Okay, so this is the approximate location of the home. You can see it's not too far from downtown or where we are right now. It's located on the corner of Prospect and Forest Avenue. Okay, so project background, the applicants are seeking to construct an attached garage with office space, and it's going to be attached to the home via breezeway. This home is located within the R4 large lot overlay zone, lakefront overlay zone zoning district. It is undersized for its district. It is a legal lot of record that has been confirmed by the applicant's team. The home and detached garage were constructed in 1910. So the requested relief before you today, there are 3 variations. 2 are from Chapter 150 zoning variations. First one is to exceed the maximum allowable floor area of 5280 by 870 square feet for a total floor area of 6,150 square feet. Second request is to exceed the maximum allowable rear yard coverage of 630 square feet by 323 square feet for a total of 953 square feet. And the third request before you is from Chapter 94. It is a heritage tree removal request, a 30-inch diameter breast height white oak. Here's an aerial of the property. It's a corner lot, which means that it has 2 front yards. That east lot line is going to become the minimum 12-foot side yard, and that south lot line is going to become the 35-foot rear yard. Here's a view of the existing home from Prospect Avenue. And here's a view of the home from Forest Avenue. Right here is kind of the back of the home. So this is where they're proposing over here. Here is the existing survey. The blue is the home. Currently, there is a detached garage in the rear with a driveway leading onto Forest. I'll note that the home is non-conforming. It encroaches about 3 feet into the 12-foot side yard on the east, and it encroaches into the front yard on the west. However, none of the requests here for today are in regards to the non-conforming of the existing structure. The detached garage is also currently non-conforming. It encroaches within the 3-foot setback. And also, as you can tell, the rear yard coverage is already exceeding as it currently stands. Here's a picture of the proposed. So this yellow is the breezeway, and this is the garage with some office space. And then the garage is going to come out, lead out to this driveway. Right here is a covered porch, and this is a patio. So, as you can see, that driveway is placed almost entirely within the rear yard. That's where that coverage requirement comes in. Here are the proposed elevations. So this is looking from the street is the top. You're going to be looking facing east. And then that's going to be facing west. So you're looking at the long way. And so this little area is not the garage. The garage is right here. You'll see better. There's another elevation. There it is. That will show in that picture that kind of looks like garage door opening, but here you can kind of see it's the window covered porch area. Okay, so first is the floor area analysis. The maximum floor area for this lot is 5,280. Bonus is 6,180. The existing home is 5,152 feet. They are going to demolish 465 of it with this project. So the total proposed is 6,150 square feet. It's over FAR by 870. You'll notice that it is within the range allowable for bonus FAR. However, due to the fact that this project needs variations, it cannot be eligible for bonus FAR, which normally that is available to properties who meet the requirements. It's kind of an in-house review as opposed to a variation coming here.
Folks, if you could keep it down until she's done.
We'll wait for questions until the end.
Can I ask you to take off your mask while you're there? So it's difficult to hear what you're saying.
I'll speak loudly. Thank you. Okay, so here's the FA. This is going to be the rear yard. So this is how you can see the designated yards for this property. The front yard along the west, the front yard along the north are both 40-foot front yards. That east is that 12-foot side yard, and then the rear is that 35-foot rear yard. Something to note is that the front yard terminates the rear yard. So if this were an interior lot, that rear yard would follow all along that lot line. However, since that front yard cuts it off, it's a reduced rear yard area. So the yellow is what's going to be included in that rear yard coverage. That total area is 2,100 square feet. The 30% coverage limit is 630 square feet. The proposed coverage is 953. So the zoning code doesn't allow the total area of any uses or structures on the lot to exceed that 30% coverage limit within the rear yard. Now, which brings us to the third request, which is the heritage tree removal. That green circle on the screen right here is the approximate location of that heritage tree. It's a 30-inch DBH white oak. And we have the city foresters here to expand upon their memos if you have questions for them. However, the reasoning stated in the forestry memo, which was enclosed in the packet, states that due to the proximity of this development, it's going to impact the heritage tree and impact the other trees, which will experience substantial excavation and compaction should this proposal receive approval. This was an alternate site plan submitted by the applicant and their team. I'll let them expand upon the pros and cons of this. I just wanted to point out that porches in this situation would be allowed to encroach up to 8 feet within that required yard. The patio, as long as it's not greater than 12 inches in height, can go up basically 38 feet into that rear yard. Patios of that size allow a lot of encroachment. Okay, so engineering had no comments. Forestry memo was included. I have not received any written comments for this case. Are there any questions?
Can you flip back to the picture with the buildable, that one? You indicated that this residence would be allowed the bonus FAR, except for the other variations that are needed. The fact that it is encroaching onto that front yard on the left side of the screen.
Yeah.
Would that affect the bonus eligibility?
No, so it only applies to the particular project that they're proposing, and so the areas of, let me actually get the other picture. So the area that they're proposing to build, the yellow, is actually within that buildable area of the lot. So it's just the existing home that has those encroachments. So they would be allowed to do the project if the specific project additions met those requests, met those setbacks. However, since that rear yard coverage kicks in, this leads us to not being eligible for bonus FAR. I said that, so because of the fact that they need that rear yard coverage request, they can't go through this with a bonus FAR normally as an applicant would. But because that existing home is non-conforming, that doesn't really affect this project because the proposed project meets the required setbacks, even if the existing home doesn't. Because you can see right here, the home's in this front yard, a little bit in this front yard, and a tiny portions in that side yard.
Are there any other questions for Kelsey or the forester?
Just to raise a procedural issue, Kelsey, it's my understanding that even though the applicant has submitted an alternate plan, that's not before us tonight. So we can really not consider that or opine on that unless they were to withdraw or officially amend the request that is before us. Is that correct?
Well, this proposed site plan does have an increased FAR, so then that would need a republish and have to come to a new meeting. But if it didn't need any more additional requests, then this could be something that would be entertained. But again, the applicant's here to kind of explain why the site plan may or may not meet their needs for their project.
Okay, but I'm just talking procedurally, we really can't, we're not able to choose A or B. They're
No.
asking for A.
Yeah, if you wanted to move forward with an A or B, it would likely be a continuation, so there would be plans drawn up, because these aren't really approvable plans in the sense because they're all marked up. So yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Kelsey?
I have a question for
Member
the forester.
Krasinski? For the forester?
Hello, Ben Miller, City Forester.
No.
In the memorandum that was submitted by you, it indicates on the first page, last paragraph, that each of the shade trees along the east property line will experience substantial excavation and compaction should this proposal receive approval. Can you just kind of explain in layman's terms what that means?
Certainly. So if you look at the tree inventory and survey that were included, the majority of the shade trees that exist on private property all hug that north property line, or excuse me, east property line. I have to reorient myself. And since the structure encroaches all the way onto that setback line, each of those trees, I would say, is within 5 feet of where that foundation is going to go. Between the foundation excavation, the overdig that would be required, and any compaction from equipment that has to operate in that vicinity, that very narrow space, you're talking about upwards of 50% root loss on the entire side of, on the west side of each one of those trees.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for?
Yeah, but more questions, as long as you're up there. The heritage tree ordinance, how many inches does it need to be considered a heritage tree?
30.
Is it 30?
Yes.
And then it looks like the applicant, is this an applicant submitted this Davy inspection?
Davy is the arborist that they brought in to evaluate the tree.
On behalf of the city, or this is independent by the?
Independent
Got it.
submitted by the applicant. Their own survey and verified by forestry staff is a 30-inch measurement.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions? Not seeing any. Kelsey, I'm going to presume the applicant is here with us this evening? If you or your counsel or architect would like to, however you're going to handle this. If you will please provide your name and address for the record.
Sure. Corey Dunn, 3215 West Division Street, Chicago, Illinois.
Thank you. Do you hereby affirm or attest that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. You may proceed.
Okay. I am the architect for the project. I've been, not before this particular board, but I've been before the zoning board many times before. Was also a resident of Highland Park and have done a lot of work in Highland Park, so I appreciate everything that we're going through here and why we're doing it and preserving the fabric of the community. Kelsey did a great job here, so I'm going to do a little bit of rehash. I'm going to try to be as quick as I can with it, but she did cover a lot of the points that I am going to talk about. First, Charlie and Lauren, they're the homeowners. They've already put a lot of time and money into the home in renovating it. As we're very aware, homes in Highland Park can go one of two ways. They can either be lovingly restored or they can be torn down. Luckily, they came along and restored the house. They've already renovated the property as is. They are expecting to grow their family in the very near future, and so part of the reason why we're here today is to accommodate what their current and future needs are going to be. So, what we're doing is we're trying to bring the house up to today's standards. As Kelsey said, we're trying to increase our living space, primarily as an office. And in today's world, Charlie and Lauren work from home. They would need some space to do it. With the expanding family, they also want a little bit more room for family space. The other thing is the garage. And so, right now, the detached garage, it's in the rear yard, it's an old structure, it's fallen down. You can't put a car in it right now, it's just not safe. And so, since we have the opportunity to build a new garage, really what we want to do is we want to attach it to the house because in our climate, it's an easier and safer way to live. Let's see. If it wasn't for the fact that we have a corner lot here, we would not be before the board for variance. We've taken great care to make sure that we're meeting the standards, even with it being a tricky lot. The existing house is well over the front yard setback on Forest, a little bit on Prospect, and then the side yard, as mentioned. And we've all seen many variations where we're looking for side yard relief, we're looking for height relief, FAR relief. If it wasn't for the fact that we're on a corner lot, we would not be coming before the board for any relief. The only reason why we're here is, as pointed out in the diagram on the board, is we've got a very unique rear yard situation, and if we wanted any garage whatsoever in the rear yard, we'd be here regardless. Obviously, having just a driveway, yes, we're exceeding the lot coverage that's allowed by code, but as far as impact on the neighborhood, it's fairly minimal. Let's see. As far as addressing some potential concerns, as far as daylight goes, we are doing just a one-story addition. Again, trying to be as responsible as we can with it. First floor is being set at grade. I know a lot of new houses as they're being built, and even the existing house, first floor is a couple feet above grade. We also have a shed roof on this, so primarily the main roof is sloping away from the neighbors, and we are not encroaching into the side yard. I know one of the things that we typically see here is if the existing house is encroaching in the side yard, a lot of times the addition wants to line up with it and go back. We're actually stepping it in. Again, just trying to be as responsible as we can with the addition. As far as the main other issue that we're here for, the tree, the heritage tree, completely understand and respect trying to save all the trees that we can. Obviously, in this situation, there are a series of trees that go along the property line in the setback. Again, we're not trying to encroach into that side yard. We're staying within the buildable footprint. We're doing that for a couple of reasons. Well, I guess we're trying to get as tight as we can to that setback for a couple of reasons. One is we want to preserve the quality of the existing home. And so right now, the blue rectangle that sticks out in back is primary living space in the current house. And so when we did the addition, we had a balancing act between trying to be respectful with the neighbors and the trees and keeping the addition within the buildable footprint of the lot, and also balancing that with the view out of the existing house. One of the things that we showed, Kelsey, are you able to pull up that the diagram And actually, just to clarify the comment earlier for the board, the diagram that shows the addition being moved down 15 feet, yeah, that one, thank you. This is actually just to show the effect of if we were to consider moving the addition away from the property line to potentially protect the chances of saving the heritage tree, the impact that it would have to us. And so what this diagram shows is the proposed addition would be squarely in front of the family room, completely blocking any view out of that living space. The other thing that it would do is it would have a detrimental effect on the backyard as we are creating it. So right now, with pushing the addition within the setback as tight as we can to that side property line, it allows us to maximize our rear yard. And that does a couple things for us. One is, in a post-pandemic world, it allows us to create some indoor-outdoor living space. As we all know, connection to nature and that kind of being able to get inside and outside, it's good for well-being. It also creates a space where we can create an oasis. We can do a lot of landscaping, gives us more space to plant new trees. And I would argue not only does that really make for a better space that's responsible for the homeowners, the property, and the neighborhood as a whole, it allows us to create a better space that's visible from the street and the sidewalk. So I actually think it benefits the neighborhood by keeping it tucked up where we have it proposed. The last point that I'd like to make is just to show that we're considerate of trees. I built a house in 2009 for my family. We had a tree, it wasn't an oak, but it was a substantial tree. It had actually a 48-inch diameter trunk. We had an arborist come out and advise us on how to plan and both staying outside of the drip line of the tree, making sure that we don't compact it. We protected it during construction. We did all the things that we should do. We actually made the footprint of the house go around the tree. And it was one of the primary goals of the house was to be respectful to the site and make sure that we're accommodating the best we can. 3 years later, the tree didn't survive and we had to take it down. And I bring that up as kind of an anecdote just to say, the reality is with these trees, we can do everything. We can move that addition 15 feet away from that heritage tree. The reality is it's still a roll of the dice. The tree may make it, it may not. Our goal is, so because of the way the variance process works, we are here today to be able to remove that tree. Our goal is during construction is to attempt to keep the tree and save it. Obviously, depending on how that goes, we may start excavating and find that the primary roots are there and the tree becomes unstable and unsafe and we may have to remove it. That's something that we won't know until we get into it. But if we could save the tree, we would love to save the tree. We're not going to come in here and just say, hey, we're taking this thing down regardless. We are going to do our due diligence and kind of see how it goes. We have had a lot of conversations around, we are going to plant new trees when we're done. Things always change, things always evolve. It'd be great to keep every tree forever. The reality is trees don't last forever. And so, this is going to be their home. We want to make sure it's a nice space. Any trees that we do lose, the intention is we are going to replant. I do know that the ordinance says that if we do take down a heritage tree, we're going to have to plant, but the intention is to do that anyways. That's all I have.
Thank you. Any
Yeah, I have a quick
member
question.
Bay, Vice Chair Bay?
Just for clarification, when you say that, but for the fact this is a corner lot,
Yes.
you would not be here, I'm assuming that means that the encroachments are all caused by the fact that it's a corner lot, and if it wasn't a corner lot, you wouldn't have the encroachments, but you'd then be asking for the bonus FAR.
That is correct. So if we were a typical lot that wasn't in the corner, our addition would be within the setbacks. Obviously, we're not asking for any height variance. Because it's an addition, as Kelsey pointed out earlier, we would be within the bonus that's allowable for an addition, so we would not need an FAR. And then, in theory, we wouldn't have a driveway going to a street that's perpendicular to the property, so we wouldn't need the lot coverage for the rear yard lot coverage as well. So essentially, our hardship, which I'm stealing a little bit of Mark's thunder here, is caused by the corner lot. And if we were a typical lot, we wouldn't need any of those variations.
But you would still need the heritage tree. Really.
Potentially, yes. If we were a normal lot and had a 30-inch tree that was in the proximity of where we want to put the addition, yes, we could be before you for the heritage tree. That is correct.
Member Henry?
So how big is the structure that's connected by the breezeway?
It is, I want to say, I don't remember offhand, but it's in the
Yeah, I'm not,
600 to 800 square foot range. Probably about 800, I think.
okay. But, so like, I guess what I've come accustomed to seeing on this board is garages, like 20 by 20, for example. In terms of that, I mean, what kind of comparative size are we looking at?
So the garage structure, outside wall to outside wall, is 24 foot by 24 foot.
Okay.
So as you're probably aware, a minimum two-car garage is 20 foot by 20 foot. Generally speaking, that's a frame wall, so a 6-inch wall. Our recommendation to Charlie and Lauren was, you really want to be about an extra foot wider on each side, so you got room to actually open your door, maybe hang some stuff on the wall. That just functionally, it breathes a little better at a 24 by 24.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you. Does your colleague wish to?
Yes, thank you.
Hi.
Good evening. If you would please provide your name and address for the record.
Good evening, Mark Lichtman, attorney at law, 1555 Eastwood Avenue, Highland Park, Illinois,
Thank you.
and 134 North LaSalle, Suite 750, Chicago, Illinois.
Thank you. Do you hereby affirm or attest that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. You may proceed.
A couple things. As it relates to the tree, Corey's right, it's really, it's a gamble. I did an addition to my house in 2005 before there was a heritage tree ordinance, and I have two major heritage trees that we dug the foundation for, and to this day, they're still dropping acorns on my roof. So, you just don't really know, with these trees as to what's going to happen, but I've spoken to my clients about these trees, and they're nature lovers, and they not only intend to replant these trees, but they're going to professionally landscape this property so that it's really going to be a tremendous addition to that neighborhood and to that corner. And I think when people are outside and then they're walking their dogs, they're going to say, boy, this is a beautiful addition, and I just love what these people did with their homes. And they bought this home to live and raise their family here. I'm here to deal with the standards, and we submitted written standards to the board. I don't know if, I haven't been in front of you in some period of time, I don't know if you want me to read them into the record, or if the written copies are made a part of the record.
They're in the record, since you have submitted them. If you would like to provide a highlight, it is your case to make, sir.
Well, I guess the point that I'm trying to make here is that, we're really dealing here, if you look at the first one, is we're dealing with a 112-year-old home. And most people would have, my clients will testify with this, would be, look, we can build a much bulkier house and a bigger house and within the setbacks and not be before you. But my clients elected to save this out. And there's a public policy, at least when I was on the board, of trying to save old homes. And we always try to incentivize people to try to save their homes and to bring it up in today's modern standards. And they want to be able to earn a return in terms of enjoyment of the house. And that enjoyment is having a two-car garage with electrical chargers, and then to be able to have a room to get away with to conduct business, and to be able to access their homes. By this really elegant plan that's been promulgated by this very talented architect here, you know, it's beautiful what they've done by having this breezeway, and it will yield the homeowners a tremendous amount of return on enjoyment. And when people are building homes and they're doing additions, that's what they're looking at. They're looking to enjoy and get the best use and enjoyment out of their homes. The plight of this petitioner is not really to serve as a convenience to them. What it is, it's for them to enjoy this home. If you look at these lots, it's really crystal clear that that little corner's side yard requirement, because of the way this ordinance is written, is really what is causing this. And, you know, we're not asking for a three-car garage, and I can't tell you how many times I'd be before the zoning board when I was on it, where people would ask for three-car garages and four-car garages. We're trying to bring this home so it could last for another 112 years. My clients, they didn't create this hardship. They bought this house, they're lovingly restoring it, and what they're doing here is they're just bringing it up to standards. And it's elegant what they've done, and it's going to benefit the neighborhood. And really, the funny thing is if you look at that breezeway, it's really almost all the way so far from the street that it's really going to have no impact. Really, and if you look at where the office is, the same thing. It has no impact on really the neighborhood or to any other neighbor. So it's not materially detrimental to this property. It's not going to cause any loss or supply of air to any adjacent properties. It won't increase the congestion on the street. What it's going to do is it's going to take away this current eyesore, and I'm sorry to insult your garage, of that garage, and turn it into something that everybody in the neighborhood is going to say, boy, this is really beautiful what you guys did here. And I believe that this variation is clearly within the spirit and intent of the ordinance, because the spirit of intent of the ordinance is to try to have a land use, but at the same time to control it, so people make reasonable uses of their property, and it enhances the essential character of the neighborhood. In fact, it has really very little impact on the neighborhood, because it's going to be 61 feet back from the street, if not farther. And so it's going to have very little impact, and what you're doing is you're keeping people in their homes, and you're incentivizing people to deal with older homes. And that's going to make people in this town, this character of old, beautiful homes is what is really a characteristic that Highland Park is proud of, and it maintains that by letting this addition get approved. The only thing I'd like to say in conclusion is that we really don't know what's going to happen with these trees. They're going to try to save this tree. Their intent is not to take it down. They want to save it, and if they can, they will, but they will replant. And the amount of money that they're spending on this addition and what their plans are for this house, they intend to make this house, to do the best that they can do to make this house the best house that they can. So, thank you.
Thank you. Vice Chair Bay.
In keeping with your talking about the tree, Mr. Lichtman, your own arborist or your client's arborist, I think, says that in pretty certain terms that any excavation or any construction impact is likely to cause fatal decline in the tree. So when you say that they're going to try and save it, it's really, they may try, but it's not very doesn't sound like very likely even according to the city forester and into your own arborist, correct?
Well, I mean, look, I've seen trees that have survived. Nobody can guarantee that it will or it won't, but if it doesn't survive, you can clearly, as part of your condition of approval, put in there that we'll replant the trees. That is
No, I understand.
That is something, but,
It's,
there have been times where these trees have survived, and I believe that the tree is going to be very close to where the garage is, where there's really just a garage foundation. So it's not going to be as big of a foundation around that area as you might normally see if you're building a single-family home in that area.
I understand that it might survive. I just think it seems that we've got the tree expert saying it's likely that it's not going to survive, period.
May I ask a question on this related
I'm
point? Sorry. But you're before us asking us for a tree removal permit.
Yeah.
So,
We have to.
because you have to, so the discussion of whether or not it survives or not is moot, because they are asking for it to be removed.
Well, but they're using it as part of their
I understand.
persuasive, that it might survive. So then moving along, your own arborist also says the backyard appears large enough that the driveway could be moved sufficiently to greatly reduce the impact on the tree roots. Would you care to respond to that?
I think that the plan of where the driveway is really about the best place that you can do and how it meets my client's plan. And there's no guarantees that by doing anything with the driveway that it's going to have any impact or no impact on it. I'm sorry,
But one of the standards for getting a tree removed is that there are no practicable alternatives to the proposed removal. And if you're saying that the driveway could in fact be moved, isn't that a practical alternative?
No, I don't think it can be moved. I think that, basically, we're attaching this garage so that it can be so it can all flow together, and they have to have the ability to back out of the driveway and then to pull out onto Forest Avenue. So I don't really think that, that's it, but, sometimes, trees don't last forever, and so, I've had to take trees down at my house, and that was it. And in fact, I know people who have had heritage trees and did additions to them, and that were right next door to them, and didn't even have to come before the city to have it removed. So if it wasn't for the rear yard coverage, us being here, and we didn't have to come before it, we may not have even been before you. I don't know if that happens when you apply for a normal permit.
Well, for the tree, you would have been.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes when you're just going in for a regular regular building permit, you just give them a tree survey, and so that has happened from what I have been told. But the situation.
Not with heritage trees.
Yeah.
The problem is you have,
I understand.
according to the forester and your
understand.
own arborist, heritage tree.
But, I mean, we're talking about saving a structure and making it so that there is a good and solid long-term use and enjoyment of the property, and that there's a chance that the tree may survive. There are no guarantees, but, my clients want to have the use and enjoyment of this land, and they intend to plant more trees if this tree does not survive. And they're going to do whatever they can do to try to keep this tree. They love nature, and they're going to be spending a lot of money in landscaping, too.
Member Hendrick.
Why not come to us with a proposal for a garage that's 20 by 20? It seems like you're not asking for kind of the minimum amount to meet the goals here. Because even if it's incremental, it has more likely to save the tree if you're asking for less.
Well, I don't know if a 20 by 24 would really have any impact on the tree, because, the intent is to have it, line up the way that it is. And so you'd really, if you took 4 feet each way, you're not taking it any, you're not really moving it from the south side of the, if you took it from the south side of the garage and the west side of the garage, it's really not going to have any impact on the tree. But a 24 by 24 garage isn't anything major. I mean, I know that this board has passed variations for even 3-car garages.
Well, we're not bound by precedent.
Well, I understand you're not bound by it, but I have seen that before. And, they have, in a house like this, you have not only, they don't have any real space in the basement to store things. So, eventually they're going to have their bikes and their kids' bikes, and they have 2 cars and electronic chargers, and garages are, I don't think a 24 by 24 garage is really out of line. Is there anything that?
But that's not the standard, though. The standard is not whether it's out of line or not. It's whether a reasonable alternative is permitted to be used only under those conditions. And if we go over to the trees, there's similar language over in the mandatory findings for that. And to me, it's a little bit hard to make the argument that the only way to use this is to go with this plan when we know a 20 by 20 garage is smaller and can fit 2 cars.
But will 24 by 24, if you look at the site plan right here, okay, will 20 by 20 garage have any impact on the tree? And the answer is no, because really, the east side of the property is not being modified. Okay, so the line would go the same way. So if you're talking about taking 4 feet off, it would come off the south and would come off the western line of the property. So, I mean,
I'm going to continue on this questioning, but I'm going to ask the architect to come to the stand.
okay.
Hi, really quickly, Member Trzaskowski, downstairs said they're having a hard time hearing you. If you could move your mic a little bit closer.
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay, on this discussion, if we made it a 20-foot wide garage instead of a 24-foot wide garage, could you get it outside the drip line for the tree?
No. I know exactly where the conversation's going. I could tell you from personal experience, even if you get to the drip line, it's still, look, the odds are better in your favor, but it's still a roll of the dice. If we move this addition over 4 feet, it's not changing, it may have a slight percentage change in the likelihood of saving this tree. 4 feet will not greatly change the odds. It's not going to go from 90% of it not making it to, 90% it will make it. It'll be very minimal incremental change.
You'll have your chance, ma'am.
Okay.
Yeah, and I just, to further the conversation, if we would move the addition 15 or 20 feet, would it increase the likelihood of saving that tree? Yes. Is it going to save the tree? None of us in this room really know. And we're not going to know until 10, 20 years from now. And the detrimental effects, so one of the questions that you were asking is, even if we were to take that addition and move it down 20 feet, we still may lose the tree. But then what we do is we detrimentally impact the house because we cut off all the views from the living space that are currently in the house. And then we're stuck with 2 side yards. We no longer have a rear yard. And so one of the things, and go back to the enjoyment of the family using the home, is with this addition, we're really trying to accommodate everything. And again, if we could save a tree, I would love to save the tree. But my responsibility as the architect is, it's to the homeowners, it's to the structure itself, and it's to the neighborhood. And so, in careful planning, we took into consideration, how do we impact the neighbors? How do we impact the neighborhood? How do we get the most enjoyment out of the house for the family? And hopefully save as many trees as we can. And the reality is that heritage tree probably isn't going to make it. It is a substantial tree, and we're going to be about 6 feet away from it. There's a chance it could make it. I wouldn't put any money on it. There's a chance it would make it. But I wouldn't put any money on it if we moved the addition 20 feet away from it. It just, we don't know until the addition's done, and does the tree make it? And again, we may be in a position where the tree doesn't make it to the finished part of the addition. We may excavate at that point, and Mark brought it up. where that tree is going to be adjacent to the garage. So the good news is, we're going to do the minimum foundation that we need to there. We're only going to get below the frost line. But, we may put a shovel in the ground, and there might be substantial roots there, and the tree may become unstable, and we may need to remove it just for safety issues. But nobody in this room knows that until we put a shovel in the ground. Even the arborist who did his report, he's not going to know until we know. He can give us best recommendations, the city forester can give us best recommendations, but it is a roll of the dice.
I guess I maybe wasn't clear. I mean, my concern and my focus is not on the likelihood of survival, because
Understood.
that's not in the standards that I'm evaluating this on. I am just looking at your presentation and thinking in my head that I see, other than your alternative proposal that you admittedly bring to us too, which in itself is interesting, that you have an alternate proposal. That's not ideal.
It's not an alternate
Not
proposal.
ideal, and maybe not practical because of the cutting off the light and air, and so I understand. But just looking at the whole situation, I'm looking at, well, if we made the garage a little bit smaller, and maybe if we didn't have, to me, what seems like a large office, and we slid it down more, I start compounding these things, and I'm just saying, I'm looking at this, and I look at the standards, and it says to only be used in the way that you're presenting to us. And this is what I am seeing. And I hear, I mean, your design looks great, I don't deny that, but I'm just comparing it to the standards, and it seems like there are other alternatives, and it seems like you could be asking for less to me. So what is your response to that?
So I appreciate that. Just to be clear, and I didn't hint on this earlier, the alternate proposal that we're seeing here, in our due diligence, we felt we needed to show what the impact would be if we were to move the addition per the city forester's recommendation. So we are not saying that this is an alternate. We're going in as the proposed as it was submitted. This is just a diagram to show. So I understand that. So an arborist will tell you that if you're within the drip line, you may negatively impact the health of a tree. That's what I've learned over my 35 years of doing this. So as long as we're within the drip edge, and even if we're outside the drip edge, we're rolling the dice. And so as far as the standards are concerned, in my mind, yes, we have options where we could move the addition. My concern is twofold. One is we're going to negatively impact the existing structure and the addition and the homeowners and any future homeowners' ability to enjoy the property to its potential. The other side of this is I don't think we solved the problem. I think we kick the can down the road, we incrementally improve our chances of the tree surviving. Again, I wouldn't bet on it, because we're still within the drip edge. And as long as we're within the drip edge, I think we're talking semantics here. Maybe the tree survives, maybe it doesn't. And we can't really get outside the drip edge and stay within the setbacks. If we really want to get outside the drip edge, we're putting the addition all the way down in the front yard on Forest. And so, I guess that's our hardship, is if we want to save the tree, and let's just say for a moment the tree's the only thing we're considering, which in my mind, I'm not doing my job well if I do that. Again, we're trying to neighborhood, the family that lives in the house, the property as a total, we need to solve for all of it. We'd be asking for a front yard setback variation so that we could put our backyard where the tree is. And so we would actually be creating a hardship by doing that, or the tree is creating a hardship for us.
Thank you for your responses, appreciate it.
Yes.
Member Gavon.
Thank you. Could you talk about why the garage couldn't be flipped to the limited side yard garden area, and to have the area that you're talking about building right now be your side yard where there's a heritage tree and other beautiful trees?
So what we're calling limited side yard garden, that's actually the front yard setback on Forest. So as of right, the dotted line, you see where the red arrow is pointing down where the block view is? I believe that's actually pretty close to where the 40-foot setback line is, if it's not actually the 40-foot setback line. So anything that we were to build below that line would actually be an encroachment into the front yard setback off of Forest.
And you need a variance.
We would need a variance for that.
Okay, so why not that option?
Why not ask for that? I think for two reasons. One is, well, actually three reasons. One is it would block the view from the family room, because unless we brought it, if we brought it all the way down to a line with the sunroom, then we would get the view out of the family room, so that would solve it, but we would need a substantial encroachment there. The second thing is I think that it would have a little bit more of an impact on the neighborhood, because now we're, again, encroaching substantially into that front yard setback. And so people driving down the street, the adjacent neighbors, people walking on the sidewalk, there's more of a wall of structure where there's supposed to be a relief of yard. And then third is, I guess it's negligible, arguable. You know, I like to be able to take advantage of the public way past the property line that kind of extends the yard a little bit. I know it's not on their property, it's public land. But when you're using the space, you do gain an extra 10 to 15 feet there. So you do get a better yard out of it.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry, you're not going to be heard.
Okay.
If you'd like to come up and be sworn in, you may.
Yeah,
Okay.
her comment was functionally, so part of the plan, thank you for that, is we did want to be able to, you know, if you were building a house from scratch, a lot of times you have your garage, you come into a mudroom, you go into your kitchen. It's just it's a nice way to kind of take your coat off, get your groceries, put them down. So part of the plan, which happened to work out to our benefit here with how the house is currently sited on the property, is we are able to create that situation where we are going to go from the garage to the mudroom to the kitchen. So if we do flip to the other side of the house, ironically, we would then be coming in through the sunroom to the living room, through the dining room to get to the kitchen. So it would create a little bit of an awkward flow through the house, and the mudroom would really be rendered useless at that point because it would be at the wrong side of the house.
Sure, I have a question.
Thank you.
Member Zirinsky?
Getting back, I'm just going to get in this tree for a second. So I asked Ben about the tree. I guess my question is, did anyone from the city forestry and Davy ever meet on site to discuss the tree or measure the tree or?
Not together.
Okay.
They met, or they were at the site independently, as far as I'm aware.
Gotcha.
We had an arbor, we had Davies go out before we found out about the heritage tree, because we needed to know where the trees were and all that. And then once we got the city forester's report, we had them go back out again, because there was in their initial report, there was a little bit of, I don't know if it was a dead growth or whatever they call it, at the top of the canopy, where there was a slight concern about it.
Right.
So we had them go back out to investigate a little bit further to figure out, okay, is this something that we need to be worried about? You know, what was the health rating of the tree? And the arborist did come back and said that if you properly maintained the tree and cared for it, that the damage wasn't such that they were concerned if the tree would survive or not.
I guess what I'm getting at is, I guess you've taken the position that it is a heritage tree, because
It is.
Your memo shows that it doesn't meet the characteristic of a heritage tree. It's 29.6 inches, which isn't 30. So I guess it's, the heritage tree is kind of snowballing this whole thing, but I'm just, begging the question, like, is this really a heritage tree? Because if it's not,
Right.
The applicant doesn't need any permission to take the tree down. They need permission, but they don't need a variance to take it down. So
Right.
I don't know if that's been looked into. I don't know what the definition is of how a tree gets measured, but if it doesn't meet 30 inches, it's not 30 inches, it's not a heritage tree. So your ask is already less. So
Right.
I'm just wondering, like, are you, we're talking that it is a heritage tree. I guess the applicant did submit an application that they are taking a heritage tree down.
Right.
That's probably precipitated by the city telling them it's a heritage tree, but your memo doesn't, is describing it as not a heritage tree. I'm sure it's a beautiful tree, but, it may not need permission. I'm just trying to help the cause here a little bit.
You're right, and I appreciate that. I didn't want to hit on the fact that, the ordinance starts at a 30-inch tree, and I mean, the reality is how you measure that tree, you know, we can easily argue, is it a 30-inch tree, a 29.5-inch tree? I agree with that. I was speaking, you know, I was focused a little bit more on the likelihood of will this tree survive the addition or not? But you are correct, yes. Davies came in, they said it was 29.6 inches. I mean, obviously, we can debate, you know, is it actually meet the standards of a heritage tree or not? I don't know who officially gets to measure that. It's a tricky thing to do. You know, usually they'll measure it at either 5 or 6 feet off the ground. You know, measuring something that's round and coming up exactly with, is it, you know, we can easily debate the angle of, you know, is it 30, is it 29.5? You know, our report says it's 29.5, but.
Hey, Chair, can we ask our forester?
Yes. Ben, would you mind coming up? Would you please describe the measurement of a tree, heritage tree status?
Trunk diameter as measured 4.5 feet above grade.
Okay.
In your opinion, this is a heritage tree?
Yes. I have a photo taken earlier today if you'd like to see it.
I think that would be helpful. You'll have to wait, ma'am. Follow-up question by Member Yellen?
Yes.
Thank you. If we were discussing just a garage and not an office, so if the whole project was condensed, so like if where they're showing the office was now a garage, and the garage was just pavement, would that still impact the heritage tree?
To some extent, yes. Part of the problem in here is it has to be dug to the frost line, as opposed to a detached garage, which could be slab on grade. Less impactful, less excavation, less difficult on an adjacent tree.
But so even if the office was now the garage, and the area that was dubbed garage was just asphalt, it would still impact the tree?
As I understand it, it would still have to go to the frost line if it was attached to a livable structure. Please,
And
correct. I'm wrong.
we don't.
So because, sorry, just to say it again, so if the office became the garage and was dug to the frost line, that alone would be too close to the tree?
It's hard to say. I do not know if the location where it says existing heritage tree is to scale is measured. I know on my memo, it is not. It was an approximation with the tools I had at the time. So whether that tree is adjacent to what would be the garage, or if it's further to the north or further to the south, I could not tell you. Has this been geolocated?
It was overlaid with this, yeah.
Overlaid? Okay. Then it would certainly be in a better position, because rather than 50% of the critical root zone being impacted, you're probably talking about less than 25.
And would that need a variance for a heritage tree removal?
There is, in my opinion, there would be a potential to preserve the tree in that situation if the office space was just a garage. There is nothing existing where this shown garage is. There is a greater potential to save that tree.
Okay, thank you.
Member Bay?
Well, still for the forester, what triggers the need to apply for the permit to remove the heritage tree? Is it how close you're excavating?
The amount of impact. So when we received referral from Kelsey with regards to the other variations, and we saw this plan with the adjacent heritage oak, the amount of impact to this tree, in my opinion, would ultimately lead to the death of that tree, in which case we're talking about a removal up front. Because otherwise you're dealing with not only the tree being in worse condition once construction gets started, you might be dealing with the safety hazard.
And I assume there's some standard or there's some presumption that if you're within X amount of feet with the excavation of where you believe the roots to be, it's likely to affect the tree.
no hard and fast rule, but as is also noted in the memo provided by Davey, within 10 to 15 feet is really darn close. Getting down to 5 feet, it's an absolute no. This thing has to come down, and in my approximation, we were talking about less than 5 feet between the foundation and where the base of this tree is.
So when they submit their plans, it's incumbent upon the building department to say, well, this is going to require excavation within a certain distance from a potential heritage tree. We need to look into that.
I would say that's more so on forestry, and if we have such questions, we'll approach building staff to inquire as to, what kind of impact we might be seeing based on the construction drawings.
Do you know, how many other trees are they planning to take down? I apologize if that was in the memo, just curious.
There are no removal plans listed.
Because we have 63 trees, that's a lot of trees on the site.
Correct. I will note that most of those are on right-of-way. Since there is that large front yard setback on Forest, most of those fall within the parkway.
Got it.
The only shade trees on the property, the only shade trees on the property exist on the east property line, or towards the east property line where we're talking about, and then on the south property line adjacent to the existing driveway. There are some ornamentals scattered adjacent to the foundation of the existing residence.
Any other questions for the forester at this moment? I'm going to ask the Woods. Thank you for being patient. You'll each provide your name and address for the record.
Hello there, I'm Charlie Wood, and I live at 178 Prospect here in Highland Park.
Hi, Lauren Wood, 178 Prospect in Highland Park.
Thank you. Do you hereby affirm or attest that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
I do as well.
Thank you. It's your floor.
Okay, well, thank you for listening to our case today. Lauren and Charlie Wood. We just basically wanted to recap a little bit about, our process for moving into the community, buying the house, and our reasoning for this project. We bought in 2020, as I'm sure we've covered. I think one of Mark or Corey mentioned it, and we beat out a couple other offers, thankfully. We've actually gotten to know the family in the process of acquiring the house and in the intervening 2 years since then, and they not only were very excited that what we have done to the house, they've actually visited the house, but they selected us when we put in our offer because our intention to preserve the house and update it. It was badly in need of it, hadn't been updated in excess of 60 years, as the children of the homeowner told us, and we embarked on this project for better or worse, a lot of more money than we expected, but we brought it into the 21st century and really had a fun time doing it and have fallen in love with the community since. We actually didn't live in the house for a year and a half doing the project. But, since moving in, we have noticed its limitations, primary of which is this garage situation and the extra living space that we want to construct. We're expecting a child, we have elderly parents, they visit, we want to make sure the garage is closer to the house. Of the 4 properties that border us, we are by far the furthest attached garage from the house. It's around 100 feet. We've had issues carrying in groceries, we've had issues, moving our things in and out of the house. We actually got a ticket the other day for parking in front of our house because you can't park on that side of the street in front of the house. That was fun. I also took off the mirror attempting to back out of the garage that I parked in the other day because it's an old, very narrow garage with no power. We have 2 electric cars. We do want to put in proper power charging for our cars. The garage lost power when we renovated and lost the electrical because it's old electrical. Part of the reason we want to have an extra living space is our basement is about my height. I don't know how many of you have a basement, but presumably it's higher than 6 feet tall. It really doesn't make for a renovation where we can make that livable space. We could have play space for our children or extra office space for us who we do work from home. It's an old home. It's had a lot of challenges. We've had to convert bedrooms into closets, so we've lost bedroom count. And as we grow our family, we want to have an extra space where we can have an office, which will double as a guest space on ground floor, So my father, who has Parkinson's, doesn't have to walk up 3 flights of stairs to stay on our 3rd floor. Things like that. We just want to move this into the 21st century. And as real estate agents, we do know the value in having an attached garage. We actually learned through one of our neighbors who lived across the street that their niece or nephew was going to buy their house, who had interest in buying the house, but didn't because they couldn't figure out what to do with this detached garage situation. It's a big problem. Like, a lot of families these days don't want detached garage. We want to have the safety and ease of getting in and out of our house without the hassle of walking, 100 feet in whatever weather condition, without, falling and, hurting ourselves. Do you have anything to add?
Yeah, that was great. I just have a couple things to add. Thank you again for hearing our desires tonight. And when the pictures they've shown of our house tonight are from when we purchased it, so I'd encourage you to drive by if you haven't. We've completely changed the front landscaping of it and painted it, and we plan on doing more landscaping. We put a deposit down with Chalet to add more landscaping on the west side of the home, continuing to beautify it. Also, in our discussions with Chalet, originally for the front landscape, we were going to do a carport in the front, or like a front driveway, but ultimately we decided it would just not look very nice, because it has been challenging to get into the home from the back driveway. So we decided to try to do this instead, so hopefully this passes, so we didn't just spend all that money on the front landscaping to not be able to do this. And then, like Charlie said, I think the biggest concern is like the basement, like there's just, it's like a cellar, it's scary, I don't even go down there. And this kind of creates that like extra living space, and I think I just wanted to drive home the point that just creating this home, like we're from Lake Forest, we love Howard Van Doren Shaw. He built the town square there, and we're in real estate and love all the homes. So it was really nice to be able to restore this home. It's a very special home, but bringing it into the 21st century has really been a labor of love, and it's, it had structural issues, and that's why we weren't able to live there for a year and a half as we restored it. And just really, this kind of has become a nice idea that can kind of help us stay in the home a longer time. We love to raise our children there and be able to stay for a long time. And like they said, we do love nature. We go down to the beach almost every day with our dog and, enjoy all the beautiful trees in our neighborhood. I mean, that's kind of why this neighborhood is so special to us.
And if I could jump in, like, that landscaping on the west side is like phase 2, and we would have a phase 3 of landscaping, which would include, we want to include deciduous, like, trees that will grow and will be there in 100 years when, the next future homeowners will be there. I mean, I don't know how long this heritage tree, it's in excess of 200 years according to Davy Tree. Who knows how long it's going to live? We want to plant new trees, plant plants that are going to beautify and improve the property well into the future.
I think that covers it for now. Do you have questions for us?
Any questions of the applicants? Not seeing any. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Is there anyone from the public who would like to speak on this matter? If you'd like to step up to the podium.
Yeah, I just needed to know where the restroom was, but I've never been here before, so sorry. But can someone come to it?
It's out the door and to the right.
Okay, thank you. And do you need me to say something, like,
Whichever, he can go first if you'd like, and you can come back, whatever your...
sorry, thank you.
Sir, if you'd like to step to the podium?
Sure.
If you'd please provide your name and address for the record.
Sure, Igor Konevsky, 162 Prospect Avenue, Highland Park.
Would you please spell that for the recorder?
Of course, Igor, last name Kanevskiy.
Thank you. Do you hereby affirm or attest that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. Floor is yours.
Yep, I can also attest that our neighbors have done a great job with their house on the outside. We were lucky inside to be invited inside, so they've done a good job with that. And generally, I think we wanted to state that we respect and support our neighbors' need for a functional garage that satisfies their modern requirements. We do have some unaddressed concerns at this point that arise from the current proposal and the structure's location that we wanted to bring up and see if they can be addressed at some point. From the, as relates to the standards and specifically the number 6 about the the variation not impairing the adequate supply of light and air to the adjacent property. From our angle, where our property is located, just to the east, the request is to move the garage and to create an addition which would effectively be 12 feet from the fence and the property line, with a proposed height of 18 feet, I believe, at peak. And the breezeway would start somewhere at the level of our family room window, and the addition would run parallel to the family room and the screen patio and the entire backyard. Our concern is the structure's height, as it's currently presented, would significantly impede the incoming light from the west. Considering the height of buildings on the Forest Avenue on the west side, effectively any structure that's going to be about that far away and over 8 feet tall would have a negative effect. An 18-foot roof height would be an equivalent of having something along the lines of a 100-foot building across on Forest Avenue. We've asked if an alternate roof design can be considered to bring down the height, and perhaps if the structure were to be relocated either south or west in order to minimize the impact. At this time, we haven't really received any responses to that, and so as proposed, that would effectively run as a wall past our entire property and along the fence. Arising from the forestry report, and we're learning and hearing these things probably for the first time over the last couple of days. In addition to the discussion of the detrimental impact to the white oak, there was also documented mention of impact on other shade trees in that area due to how the foundation will have to be dug. While the focus is on that, the impact on other trees to us is just as important. There's a maple right on the property line, and one of the affected trees is the American elm, which is on our side of the fence. If all three of these trees were impacted and eventually die, we'd have no mature tree coverage on that side of our property. And we'd probably be forced to remove the elm at our expense. Given the environmental and property benefits of having trees in that area, we find this to be a fairly high impact. And generally, a reduction of mature shade trees, and I understand there's potentially a plan to plant others, but, until they become mature, it's a very long process, and it probably would have an impact on neighboring properties. And finally, as a general concern, adding significant square footage of impervious surfaces this close to the house adds risks for water runoff in our direction over the yard, as well as hydrostatic pressure on the foundation and the like, as we're all kind of slightly downhill from 178. We discussed this, and our neighbors shared that they are looking to improve the grade in that area to address their own water issues, but we don't know at this point what it is. At some point, we basically would be looking to understand, what that would take, and what impacts that might have on our property, as our sump pumps are already working overtime during heavy rains. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for the neighbor? Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak this evening? Yes, ma'am.
I will just go on.
If you'll please approach the podium. You'll provide your name and address for the record, please.
Barita Kanavsky, 162 Prospect Avenue. That's my husband.
Thank you. Do you hereby affirm or attest that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you. You may proceed.
All right, so Corey and everybody have said it's all about the neighborhood. You want to conserve the neighborhood, and we appreciate that, but we're part of the neighborhood. So one of the things my husband said was the sunlight. So I want to say that we have pictures of how the sunlight comes into our house. But we use that patio that we have. I used it all throughout the summer, and my husband actually was working out of there, and so was I every now and then. So that is really important to us, and the air and the sunlight coming from there, with the building being as high as my husband mentioned, it's a little bit of a problem, apart from the trees. We are also tree lovers. In fact, our old house in Wilmette had a 46-inch, 50-inch tree, and we were very close to that tree. You could literally take your hand out of the window in the kitchen, and you could touch the tree. And a lot of people told us, it's too close, you should take it down. It's been older than the house, and we didn't want to take it down. We kept it there for as long as we lived there, because we love trees. And I'm from East Africa. I come from the jungle. People probably ask me, did you have a giraffe in your backyard? Not, but I come from nature. So having the impact of trees and not knowing, initially we only thought it was the oak, and we were like, we understood, right? You guys want to have a growing family and do stuff for your family, so we understand that. But when we read your report, we were very concerned because we don't want to have impact on our trees as well because of this, right? So if there's an adjustment that can be made with the construction that could make our neighbors happy and have a better situation, we're all for it. We have no issues. In fact, we've met a couple of times, we've talked about it, so we are supportive of it, but we don't want to have impact on us as neighbors in that support, because then it impacts our property. So that's the only thing I wanted to say. Thank you all for your consideration. Thank you for listening. It's been interesting just to see this process, and thank you for talking to us a few times on the call.
Any questions? Not seeing any. Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak this evening? Good evening.
Good evening.
If you would each provide your name and address for the record.
Okay, I'm Eleanor Bloom. This is, well, he'll speak for himself. We live at 1796 Lake Avenue.
Thank you.
We moved into our house 39 years ago.
One moment, sir, if you could give us your name?
Excuse me?
Your
I'm
name?
Robert Bloom.
Robert Bloom?
Yes.
Your address.
If, do the two of you hereby affirm or attest that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
We do.
We do.
Thank you, you may now proceed.
Okay. Well, when we moved into the house, we were unaware of the condition of the land. They assured us we would be fine. We had moved in, they had put in 5 immersible pumps, okay? All the water was collected and taken out to the street. On the right side of our property is a swale that goes into a drain. So we've had water issues since we moved in, but never had a problem until the zoning board changed the zoning for the neighbors to the right of us, okay? And then our problems, so for 25 years, we never had a problem. They moved in, and the zoning board did a variance, okay? They were supposed to put a pool across the back of their house, which they did not do because the other neighbor did something else, so they moved the pool perpendicular to the house. They also made it too close to our property and landscaped the property with all these trees and made their property higher than our property. And they put a pipe, a water pipe, that deposited all their water onto our property. And our house began to flood. So I would say for about 10 times we had horrible flood conditions where we had to remove carpeting. And the city was aware. Finally, when the people moved out, they did something because the situation was corrected. But no one would do anything. And I don't want to see that happen to our neighbor. They have to consider the water table of this land because the properties, when they were subdivided, were improperly graded so that their house had water conditions there. And our house, they never did anything about it, but our owner did. And I don't want to see this happen again. And the neighbors in the back have water issues. So you're taking all these trees down, that's going to affect the water table of the property. And I don't want to go through this anymore. We're elderly, we want to remain in our house till we're not here anymore. But if you continue to do this, we won't be able to.
Thank you. Sir?
There's not much left for me to say, other than the construction of this addition, you need to be sure that the water issue is not going to be a problem with runoff, because all of there's a series of about 3 homes that are all congested. And one of the concerns that I would always have with any new construction in our immediate vicinity is whether or not consideration is given to drainage from the property with respect to any additions that go into a property. It is a concern. We've had problems, as my wife explained, we've had problems with our next door neighbor when they did a huge change in their property, and I want to make sure that our neighbors don't have to face the same problem. So I think that's an issue that ought to be looked at, just to be sure there are no problems with drainage with any new construction on the property. Thank you.
Thank you.
Kelsey, can you address the issue of drainage?
I can't, sir, Chair.
But isn't there something that says you're not allowed to divert the water to your neighbor's property?
Yes,
In the
there-
code? Just high level, we don't need to go into depth.
Oh, no, I don't know the depth. Yes, there are drainage requirements, those are always addressed during permitting. There's nothing about this property that rendered review from the engineering division. So yes, I mean, there are drainage requirements where you can't just do
But
that.
it is within the permitting process.
Yes.
And just for the record, nothing triggered an engineering review, but they were aware of the application, correct?
Yes.
Right.
Anybody else from the public who would like to speak on this matter this evening? I'll give the applicants the opportunity. Is there anything this evening you'd like to respond to?
Just to speak very quickly on the stormwater management, you are correct, there is, it gets reviewed during the permit review process with the building department. As the applicant, they're not allowed to change any drainage patterns that currently exist, and Highland Park does have an issue with bigger homes getting put on smaller lots and creating more water runoff. They've got some pretty particular standards to accommodate for that. I know personally, having built homes in Highland Park, having to basically accommodate so that you can contain that on your property and let it off in manageable amounts. The code has gotten much better, much more strict in recent years in response to the concern. So that comes in the next step.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just if I may. This is
Vice Chair Bay?
not related to the drainage, but just a question while you're still at the podium again.
Yeah.
If we were just speaking hypothetically, if we were not looking to do an office, we were just looking to do the garage and the breezeway, we would be in a situation where that could be constructed both slab on grade. It would not, therefore not affect the heritage tree, and that's kind of what's triggering.
Well, what Ben stated earlier was accurate, is because we are connecting to the structure, we would be required to put a frost foundation in.
Just for the breezeway even?
The breezeway, no. For the garage, yes. So the breezeway is, we're planning on doing that with just a slab on grade. It's an outdoor structure. Actually, I shouldn't say that for sure. I'm hoping to be able to do that with a slab on grade. There is a chance. I've done porches before where they require us to do a continuous frost wall. I personally prefer to do it with piers and then a thickened slab at the perimeter, because it allows for better flow of water subsurface, subterranean water flow. That is something we're going to have to put before the building department and see if they approve it or not, but that's the intention. I'd rather not do a frost wall at the breezeway, I don't like it. But I can't promise you that they're going to approve it. But the intention would be the garage will need a frost wall under it regardless if we did the office or didn't do the office.
Just because it's connected to...
Because it's connected, it has enclosed space in it. I've seen porches go both ways. Downers Grove requires you to have a frost wall. I can name you 10 suburbs that don't. So we're just going to have to figure out if Highland Park's going to make us do it or not. And from a height standpoint, just to address that, we are doing just a one-story addition at grade. Obviously, there will be some impact to the daylight, trying to minimize it. The roof is sloping away from your property line, so it will help get more daylight into your property.
If you go high enough, the water is going to drain onto their property. When there's a very large rainfall.
Ma'am,
I'm sorry.
I need you to, if you'd like to make a comment, you'd be allowed to come back up, but,
I will.
okay,
Am I good?
you're good. Let you,
I'm sorry I'm so angry, but we have been through hell, and I can't help myself. It's been a disaster for the last 10 years until those people moved out. And
but that's not this property.
no, it isn't. But what I'm saying is, if you go high enough with a house, you know, we have substantial rainstorms. So what happens to that rain is it's going to go down, and it's going to go onto their property, and there's no runoff. So they did have water in their basement before, and you may have the same issue that is not existing now, and that has to be considered. They have to figure out a way, either they can move the property, they've got plenty of land, they can move everything they're doing is beautiful, it looks terrific, but instead of putting it at the edge of the property, let them move it to the middle of the property and use the breezeway. They've got plenty of land, they can make a bigger breezeway into the kitchen from a different angle. He's an architect, he's got good ideas, let him figure out a terrific idea to do it.
Mr. Wood.
Well, yeah, I will kind of defer to Corey on that, but I think, you know, with the drainage, we're at that 12-foot setback line, so I think we're abiding by what is required, and we have talked to Corey and have every intention of improving drainage and grading so that that is not a problem, whether it's a French drain system or some other means of getting the water from, because we have water pooling in our yard right now, right, literally just walking to our car, Lauren was like, I'm going to take a step here, oh wait, I just stepped in the puddle. So, I mean, we have problems with it and we want to improve it. It's bad enough, it's bad now, so it's an opportunity for us to make it better, and it should improve our neighbor's experience. And with respect to the light, I mean, in all due respect, if you could bring up the aerial shot, I mean, what we're asking to do is do some structure on the eastern border of our house. I mean, with respect to them, and not to be contentious, I mean, we don't have much eastern light. From what I can see, they have eastern and southern light, we have western and southern light, and we're asking to add a structure. I know it'll impact them, we hope not significantly, but we don't have morning light in our house, in our kitchen, in our mudroom, in our sunroom, because we have structures to that side of our property. So we're asking is just sort of to build along an area they've already built on their property. Not that they built it, but that's already pre-existing. So that's just the point I wanted to make.
I've got to, we'll go with the neighbor first, and then we're going to cut this off.
Okay, I'm going to try and keep it short. Hard for me to when I'm a talkative person, but here's what I would like to share with you. These are pictures of our house, and this is where the patio is, and this is the light we get. This is a December light that we have taken a picture of. This is exactly the light that's going to be blocked by the structure, 18 feet structure. We've been monitoring this light since we found out about these plans, just to see how much impact it is. The structure they're going to build, and this is the light that's coming from the sun, the structure they're building is right there. So, that's it. Thank you.
We haven't seen these pictures.
We're going to provide them to you, Mr. Lichtman.
Okay.
We'll also let you see the forester's picture.
I just want to make sure everybody knows that This is 12 feet from the lot line. The wall is 9 feet, and it's a very modest gable roof. The impact from, this isn't a 2 or 3-story structure. This is a 1-story structure.
We'll need these for the record, that you can see them, and here's the arborists. Ms. Wood?
I just wanted to drive home the point about the regrading and the water issue. Right now, like Charlie said, our whole backyard does slope towards our house. So a plan that we've talked about with our landscape architects has been to regrade it away towards the street, just to even it out. So that would help all of your properties to regrade it, towards the sewers instead of the property line or the properties. And, what we've been told from our architects is that the light shouldn't impact you as much as I think you think it might, just based on like the roof lines and the setback. So we definitely are aware of that, and I don't know if I can answer our question, but just wanted to make sure that you knew we were cognizant of the water.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We're going to need Kelsey to get those pictures, just so you know.
We're going to give that. I just want to thank everybody tonight for hearing this case. The arborist did tell us it's a 30-inch. It's just right at that line for being a heritage tree. But I'd like to thank everybody tonight. My clients love this house. They're intending to invest their heart and a lot of money in making it better for them and for the neighbors. And they really do want to try to do whatever they can do to save this tree and all other trees, and they will replant whatever it is. If it wasn't for the rear yard setback, we wouldn't even be here, but for that and the heritage tree, we wouldn't even be here tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
One last thing.
Briefly.
If it's brief, if you're going to regrade and direct the water to the street, I believe that's Dale. If you're going to redirect the water to Dale, it needs drains there that the city provides so that the water goes in there and does not flood the street. Thank you.
Okay. I think everyone has had their opportunity this evening. I'm going to begin with Member Yablon. I know she was hoping I'd begin at the other end, but I couldn't do that to our newest member.
I was super hoping you were going to start with someone else. What am I addressing currently? All of it, some of it?
We can start with the heritage. To me, it always makes sense to start with the tree. Because the tree is sort of that, if you can't take the tree down, can they even do the rest of it?
Well, they can, right?
Well, they're saying no, because the forester has said it has triggered the review.
If we're starting with the heritage tree, I'm having problems. I'm having problems.
Okay, that's fine.
With all of it, and I'm sorry, because I can tell how much time and effort and that you've put into it, without a doubt, and I really appreciate you working with an old home. I live in an old home, I get it. My husband bumps his head in the basement every time he goes downstairs, I really get it. But in terms of the standards, one of the main standards is there are no practical alternatives to the proposed removal of the heritage tree. And I'm not sure if that's been established. So if I had to vote right now just on the heritage tree, I think I would say no. But I'm always happy to be convinced otherwise. Also, generally speaking, and someone else can say it better or more eloquently, we really do like it when neighbors agree and feel heard, and ideally that happens before our meeting. So that's also impacting my thoughts on the process.
Member Hendrick?
I agree with a lot of what Member Yablon said. I think the architect is great. You did a great job answering our questions. My job is to apply the standards, and so that's all I'm doing here. I don't think, and this is not going to be surprising based on my questions, I don't think the project is kind of like the minimalist ask. And I agree about the hardship being the way it's zoned, and I get there on that. So I understand the hardship, but I'm not there on the reasonable return if only used this way. I think by this entire discussion that we've kind of unfolded, there's less we could do. It's not preferable, but there are other options. And, then I could flip back over to then the heritage tree and apply the same logic there. I will also say, I felt this way about those standards before any neighbors or anything spoke. I don't know that I'm able to conclude on whether the adequate supply of light would be impaired or not. I just being honest, I can't tell. I hear what they're saying, it's one story, it's not that high. I see your pictures, there's not a lot of light, so I get it. But since I'm already having issues with the other standards anyway, to me, I'm not in favor of any, the variations or this, and I would like to see a smaller ask. That's what I would like.
Thank you. Member Trushansky?
God, for my second meeting, this one's pretty tough. So I spent a lot of time thinking about the tree issue, and I think that the architect did actually a nice job of explaining why there really are no other practicable alternatives. I think we can debate what practicable alternatives means. Yeah, you could make certain additions smaller, maybe flip things around, but I mean, depending on how you define practicable alternative, is it really that? And so I think that that's, in my mind, that standard is met. So I think I'm okay with the heritage tree removal. My issue rests with the issues with the neighbors. And I would have liked these issues to have been hashed out prior to coming here so that perhaps when a presentation was made, we could have had a little bit more information as to whether or not there will be additional runoff because of this. What are the chances of the runoff occurring? Were any studies conducted? I mean, anything, something to have me like latch on to thinking, okay, runoff's not going to be an issue, but I'm not sure about that. And the same thing with the whole lighting issue. I believe that, like you said, it's only going to be one story, but those photographs show that there is some light, and to them, that some light might mean a lot. So if there was something to show me that the light wouldn't be affected, or to show me to what degree it would be affected, I would be in favor of it. But that's my issue is the issues with the neighbors and how those issues should have been addressed before coming here. And if there was some evidence to show that those issues really aren't issues, I would be in favor.
Thank you. Member Zuransky.
I guess I'm going to go against the grain a little bit. I think this is a thoughtful plan. It means a lot to me when an applicant, improves an existing historical house in Highland Park. Someone could, as you kind of mentioned in your presentation, they could have easily bought the house, tore it down, built, a two-story structure blocking all of your lights, but they didn't do that. So I'm okay with the variances. I think the hardship is met on the lot and the zoning, and I think I can get there on that. As far as the heritage tree goes, while we never want to take a heritage tree down, clearly, unfortunately, sometimes we have to do it just to kind of, make things better, make this house better, make Highland Park better. And I think in this situation, this is a heavily wooded property. I think 68 trees. It's a single heritage tree that just essentially became a heritage tree in the last 18 months possibly. So I believe that, removal of the heritage tree is not, detrimental. I think you've proven that while there are alternatives, they're not really quite practical. It's meaningful that the applicant wants to bring this house up to today's standard. I mean, they have 2 electric vehicles. That's where the world's going. I mean, how can we not, permit making this house, sustainable and just bring it to the 21st century? I think, that's where I'm at. I'm in favor of it. I think it's a carefully thought out plan. I don't think the light, granted, I'm not going to litigate if it's going to affect it or not. I don't believe it's going to be as much of an impact. It's possible, an hour or 2 of winter light might be, blocked, but essentially there's a fence and there's trees that are screening the whole property anyway. And the fact that someone can come in and build a 2-story house and fully block the light, I think it's kind of meaningful that the applicant's, hasn't done that and has no intentions on doing that. And that's where I'm at. And as far as, just for the record, as far as stormwater management goes, I mean, we're not engineers. I mean, we hear you, we understand you, we live in the same community, it's a mature community, and we have our infrastructure issues for sure, but we have a very professional engineering department in the city that carefully analyzes that, and if the Woods or their architect are doing anything that's improper, they're not going to be, approved. If anything, I think that they are essentially improving the situation as opposed to, making it worse. So I would be in favor of supporting all the variations this evening.
Thank you. Vice Chair Bay?
Okay. I kind of agree and disagree with a little bit of everything that's been said by everybody, but I'm not going to go over everything. I will note for clarification that as far as the heritage tree ordinance and the standards for granting a variation, that we can't confuse the word practical with practicable. The dictionary definition of practicable is something that can be done, period. If the city council wants to change that standard, then that's an issue for them. But as it reads now, it says very simply that there can be no practicable alternative. So I'm not sure, I think that's a hard hurdle for anybody to overcome at any time to remove a heritage tree. I agree with Member Hendrick when he talks about the light. I'm really not sure. Obviously, it's an issue that's contentious between the parties. I don't know that any party has, quote unquote, met a burden of proof to determine whether or not it will block the light or it won't block the light. Having said all that, I really would like to get you there. I think it's relatively speaking, it's a reasonable request. It's a big house, but in your neighborhood, it's not the biggest house. Matter of fact, I looked at some of the others. It's one of the smaller houses. And to live in that neighborhood and be able to utilize your land and the space and be able to grow your family, I'm big time in favor of allowing you to do that and be able to enjoy it and increase the value of your house, or at least maintain the value of your house relative to the others. but I'm just not quite there with the standards, and I think there might be ways to massage this a little bit to get me there, but I'm not there right now.
Okay, thank you.
We request a continuance.
May I speak first? He's interested. I've got him captive. I'm going to agree with Member Zaransky on this one. I think this was a very artfully crafted proposal to provide just the space that you need, it being connected to the house. I have a detached two-car garage. It's probably a little bigger than 20 by 20, if I remember correctly. It's not 24 by 24, I'm pretty sure. And I wish I had a breezeway, except there's a big steep hill down to it. So it would be really complicated. So I understand your ask. I understand the requested variations. I'm going to get to the tree in a minute. Even though I think the tree generally has to go first because that becomes the crux. I actually, when you look at this lot, and while there is the potential to move the garages, you have said such that it is more centered in your yard, and thereby actually closer to the street, making the driveway shorter, and pulling it all away from your neighbor's house. I don't believe the light's an issue, I'll be honest, because of the angles of light and the angle of the roof. But that being said, if you did bring it down, you could, in theory, give a little bit more space to the neighbor and get it further away from the heritage tree. But I think it creates other issues for you, as the architect has identified. The hardship here in this lot is obviously the fact that it's a corner lot, the fact that the house encroaches in 3 directions, and you are limited in where you can place a 2-car plus garage. Therefore, I think it becomes easier to say that there are no other practicable alternatives for where to place the garage. Now, it may be that this argument doesn't sway my colleagues. Your counsel has already asked for continuance, but I'm just going to say that at this stage, I would be nudged over the line to approve both the variance and the tree removal based on the configuration of this lot and the inability to put the garage practically, not practicably, practically anywhere else. So, having heard us this evening, you still wish to have the continuance, sir? You need a vote of 4.
Exactly.
Okay, and we have 1 absent, so briefly. And remember, we'll be voting on both items individually.
Can I ask a procedurally question without the mayor?
Yes.
Why do we need to, why can't the variances be approved and the tree removal not be approved?
Let's get to that when they're back.
Okay. I'm just wondering, just not.
We may
not-
be,
not
I'm
giving-
going to ask the
Okay.
council
Got it.
answer that one.
Got it.
Did that sway any of you in any direction? Your stance, based on hearing, especially the 2 that went first. You know, you said you were open to hearing other arguments, but it didn't sway you.
They didn't make them.
I think my colleagues were very persuasive, and it was interesting hearing everyone talk. It certainly moved.
We shouldn't
it
be
certainly
talking
moved
about this
them
with the
up.
parties, not here.
I agree.
Here they come. Yes, and just so you were aware, while you were in the hallway, we had two minor discussions that got cut off with two questions. The first one was about the heritage tree and whether or not the project could go forward without the heritage tree removal. I'm going to ask City Council to address the fact that the heritage tree, why it's been brought in and how it plays a role legally. And the second one had to do with my senioritis. What was the?
Whether we were swayed or not.
Well, they were discussing whether or not they were swayed or not, and we cut that off before anyone said anything. Okay? Just so you're aware of the chitter chatter that went on while you were outside the room. You have asked for a continuance. We need a date certain that you would like to have it. Would that be in, Kelsey, what's the next meeting?
Or are they still maintaining that request?
I thought he came in and he asked for the request. When he walked in the door, he asked for
Oh, did he? Oh,
continuance.
I'm sorry, I missed that.
Yes.
That's my senioritis, my hearing.
Okay, I believe, let me pull up my computer's wrong here. I believe the
Should be-
first Thursday is the 2nd. So the next meeting is February 2nd. However, if you want to publish for any different requests or change any numbers, and that has to, you know, if you're exceeding FAR, then that's going to have to be for the 19th of February. So if you just want to continue it to the 2nd. that works.
I'll be in the second.
Okay, well, let's go for the second now, and if we have to continue to the 19th.
Yeah, we're gonna come back.
I'm sorry, Kelsey, I believe it's the 16th, not the 19th?
Yeah, it would be the 2nd or the 16th.
Yes, thank you for correcting me, yes. 2nd or the 16th.
You're going for the 2nd.
Yeah, yeah.
I will entertain a motion to continue this matter till
I'll make a motion.
February 2nd.
I'll make a motion to continue this matter until the next meeting on February 2nd.
Member Hendrick would second that motion.
There was a motion by Member Bay, Vice Chair Bay, with a second by Member Hendrick to continue till February 2nd. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? The ayes have it. This item will not be renoticed. This is the official notice that this item has been continued until the 2nd.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Kelsey, is there a staff report this evening?
There is not, but if you would like me to, I can provide, I can look into the heritage tree and the variation a little bit more closely, but I can provide a quick response to members are asking if you'd like.
Sure. Thank you.
So, I'll just let everyone say.
I'm thinking could be a heart question.
Yeah, well, I'll double check, but specifically with this, we tend to do heritage trees first. And so this one obviously changes it a little bit because you really can't do one or out the other. So we'll confirm with Hart, just specifically, but.
Thank you. Anything else from staff?
No, I do not have anything.
Okay, that brings us to miscellaneous. Member Hendrick, you had something.
We're still in session.
Wait, before the forester leaves?
Oh, Ben?
Ben? Wait.
I think he's got a jacket here. His cousin's here, so I think.
Oh, okay.
I think he was just helping them out.
I was afraid you were leaving, and I just wanted to thank you so much for being here, that having your presence is huge and makes it so much more understandable what we're doing. So thank you.
I'll be back. Member Hendrick.
So I abstained at the beginning of the meeting from approving the minutes. I don't expect them to be verbatim by any means, especially since I talk way too much. But we are the step before district court, and we do have to establish the record. And just in my opinion, I said some stuff, again, I talk too much, but I said some stuff addressing the standards. And to me, that stuff is not optional. That has to go in the discussions about, why we're for or against a certain standard, because that is specifically building the record if someone were to challenge our decision. And I think we have seen tonight that there are issues that could be contentious, and we want to make sure that everything everyone has said, whether for or against, is, accurately there for the standards. So that's all I wanted to say. Again, I say a lot, so I don't expect like my transcript, but if I say like I'm not in favor because of X standard, or I'm in favor because I think this standard was met, I think I would like to see that in the minutes for me to approve the minutes.
Specifically, is there something in the last minutes that you think you said or didn't say that?
Yeah, there were, so I explicitly had a discussion about the minutes on the first case. That was her first variation request that was there.
Missing, or?
Yeah, it's just cut off. It just says, like, Hendrick approves or something like that. I'm paraphrasing, but yes.
How do we deal with this? Should we?
Yeah, I'm not certain. I think that might have had to be voted on for a correction in the first vote for the minutes.
Well, it's been tabled to the next
Yeah,
meeting, so maybe it can be reviewed between now and then, and revised minutes provided.
Because we
Yes.
didn't.
Yeah, I'll double check with procedure.
Because we did not approve the minutes.
Yeah, no, yes, but I'll double check with procedure, if like, how to revise before the next meeting accordingly with these comments. So I'll double check on that, but we'll have the revised minutes, so either if they're not at the next meeting or the one after, but we'll have them. So thank you.
I was wondering why you abstained. I knew you were here. That's my arithmetic.
Anything else this evening?
I guess, no, I'm good.
Now you have to tell us.
And with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I don't know what Brad wanted to say.
Motion to adjourn? Or you have to take it.
All right, okay. I'll move to adjourn.
And a second.
Member Yaplin seconds.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? We are hereby adjourned at 9:29. It's
1:45.
I know, I was about to read that.
We're lucky we didn't have another case.
What?
We're lucky we